ratings. However, the opposite happened, and the station would go on to suffer a huge drop in ratings, which would take years for the station to recover from. Larson claimed that ABC would have cancellation remorse and really regret this decision. But regardless, Larson took his Magnum PI idea to fellow network CBS, and thankfully they didn't fall out of the idiot tree and hit every branch on the way down and agreed to greenlight Magnum PI. Their gain and ABC's loss. Number 9. The original premise was James Bond in Hawaii. ScreenRant.com offers a really interesting piece of information where they explain that the original premise of the character Thomas Magnum was to be a perfect, suave, James Bond-style character. One who's flawless, gets all the women swooning for him while he drinks vodka martinis and wears tuxedos. Basically, the character was James Bond, the PI version who lives in Hawaii. However, when Tom Selleck was cast in the role of Thomas Magnum, he wanted to change the premise of Magnum of being like James Bond to instead make him more of a casual everyman. You know, laid back. Chills out while wearing a Hawaiian shirt, while unapologetically rocking a big bushy moustache. Basically someone that the viewers can really relate to. I mean, don't get me wrong, James Bond is cool, but there aren't too many James Bonds out there, with Selleck requesting for the character to be less Bond and more like Jim Rockford from the Rockford Files. The writers at first didn't like this proposed change in the character, but went with it anyway, and the show, of course, became the hit that it was. In addition to that, despite the fact that Magnum PI's red Ferrari would become iconic to the point where sales of Ferraris would skyrocket, it was originally intended to have Thomas Magnum drive around in a Porsche. But in order for Selleck to fit in the Porsche, modifications had to be made. But back then, Porsche had a no modification policy with their cars. So Ferrari it was, whom were happy to slice and dice up their cars a bit in order for Tom Selleck to fit in comfortably. So every once in a while you're laying in bed and can't sleep at night, just remember, Thomas Magnum could have been a Hawaiian-based James Bond who drives around in a Porsche. Number 8. Tom Selleck could have been Indiana Jones after all. Okay, so by now we've all seen the Indiana Jones 2004 DVD documentary, where we learn that Tom Selleck was originally cast to play Indiana Jones. Now, this insane piece of what-if casting was done shortly after Selleck had just been cast as Magnum PI. In fact, he hadn't yet done any filming for Magnum PI when Selleck would win Steven Spielberg and George Lucas over with his screen test for Indiana Jones. However, once he was cast as Indiana Jones, Universal got involved and said, "Oh, no, you don't, Buster. If you think you've got any plans of being a swashbuckling archaeologist, then think again." Yep, Selleck was basically told that he was not to play Indiana Jones due to filming commitments, of which he was already scheduled for to play Magnum PI. So Selleck had to drop out of the Indiana Jones role, which then went to Harrison Ford. However, as it happens, at the time when filming for Magnum PI was to start, there was actually an Actors Guild strike taking place, which temporarily put a stop to the production of Magnum PI, which meant that Selleck could have starred as Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark after all. Damn, that's gonna suck. Oh well, he would still go on to have a massive success with Magnum PI, and in 1985 would win a Golden Globe for his performance as Thomas Magnum. So that ain't bad. That's pretty darn good. Number 7. Magnum PI recycles sets from Hawaii 5-0. Most of Magnum PI was shot on location in Oahu, Hawaii, which is an island known for its luscious tropical rainforests and amazing white sandy beaches. Wait, did I just quote the guy from Jaws? With its scenery making the place look nothing short of a tropical paradise. Additional filming was done at Honolulu, Hawaii, and Waimanalo Beach, also in Hawaii, and even sound stages at studios in California were also used. Now, the very year that Magnum PI made its debut, another very successful show had just finished. That, of course, being the Hawaiian-based police drama Hawaii 5-0. Now, the network didn't want the Hawaii Five-0 sound stages and set pieces to go to waste, so they would indeed be recycled for Magnum P.I. In fact, there are some claims that Magnum P.I. got its tropical Hawaiian setting in order to use the Hawaii Five-0 sets. And there are even several times throughout the Magnum P.I. series that the 5-0 would be mentioned, suggesting a shared universe. There apparently were even attempts to get Jack Lord, who starred in Hawaii Five-0, to guest star in Magnum P.I. as his iconic Steve Garrett character, but he turned it down. Number 6. Shared universes. Although it's really common for franchises to have shared universes these days, Magnum P.I. was really ahead of its time and was already exploring shared universes all the way back in the early 80s. Not only does Magnum P.I. have a shared universe with Hawaii Five-0, as mentioned, but also Murder, She Wrote, as Magnum would team up with Angela Lansbury's Jessica Fletcher character in the 1986 Magnum P.I. episode, Novel Connection. And in turn, Thomas Magnum would appear in the Murder, She Wrote episode, Magnum on Ice. I just find Magnum P.I. to be crossing over with Murder, She Wrote to just be so delightfully random. In 1982, AJ and Rick Simon from Simon & Simon would appear in the Magnum P.I. episode, Keys Don't Lie, and likewise in return, Magnum would appear in the Simon & Simon episode, Emeralds Are Not a Girl's Best Friend. But what I find to be the most fascinating crossover sadly never happened, but by gosh, I really wish that it did, as that would have been a crossover with the science fiction TV series Quantum Leap, which would have seen Sam Beckett take on the form of Thomas Magnum at his location in Hawaii, which would have been phenomenal. This would have led to a follow-up episode featuring both Magnum and Beckett, but I guess things got a little caca, and the idea didn't end up going forward. But just think about that for a moment. Magnum P.I. has a shared universe with Hawaii Five-0, Murder, She Wrote, Simon & Simon, and possibly Quantum Leap too. That's awesome. Number 5. Famous guest stars. Now, Magnum P.I. features a lineup of regular likeable characters, including Larry Manetti as Orville Rick Wright, Roger E. Mosley as Theodore T.C. Calvin, and John Hillerman as Jonathan Higgins, of which in 1987, Hillerman would win an Emmy before his performance as Higgins. In the show's earlier days, the voice of the mysterious but important Robin Masters was provided by none other than Orson Welles, with Magnum P.I. being one of Welles' final performances. Well, even though it was just voice work, but still. Throughout Magnum P.I.'s original broadcast history, the show would see several celebrity guest stars, including, but not limited to, Frank Sinatra, Cesar Romero, Sharon Stone, Ian McShane, Ted Danson, Mako, Patrick McNee, Phil Hartman, Pat Morita, James Doohan, Amy Yazbek, Scatman Crothers, Miguel Ferrer, Annie Potts, Julian Glover, former TV Spider-Man Nicholas Hammond, and the 5th Doctor himself, Peter Davison, and many, many more. So as you can see, there was a huge and random lineup of guest stars and the kitchen sink. Number 4. Uplifting Vietnam Vets. Magnum P.I. is famous for many things: its intriguing stories, action, and interesting, likeable characters. However, something else the show has become famous for was its positive representation of Vietnam vets, often being cited as the first piece of entertainment to do so, with Thomas Magnum himself even being a vet. Now, at that time, the Vietnam War was still relatively recent and considered quite a sensitive topic, with Vietnam vets often being depicted in the media as damaged, volatile, and even murderous psychos. And the world of entertainment was no different, what with classic movies like The Deer Hunter and Apocalypse Now, which, although are classics, did succumb to this stereotype. Heck, round about the time Magnum P.I. started, the movie First Blood came out, where Sylvester Stallone plays Vietnam vet Rambo, and pretty much destroys an entire town. But nope, in Magnum P.I. we get Thomas Magnum, who's living his best life and rocking his Hawaiian shirts, and is depicted as a normal, mentally adjusted guy who is both likable and even able to apply some of his Vietnam War skills to his current work. So to a lot of people, it was kind of a relief for Magnum PI to show Vietnam vets as normal people able to lead positive lives. And of course, a few years after Magnum PI started, this trend would follow in suit with the A-Team, in which the Murdoch character could probably be seen as a mockery or spoof of the damaged and deranged vet stereotype. But okay, we've gotten into another TV show, and I've already made an episode on the A-Team, so you should watch that. Number 3. The show's theme was a massive success. Yep, it's an action-packed TV show from the 80s. That can mean only one thing. It's bound to have a truly awesome theme song, which of course Magnum PI did. Now, the show originally had a completely different theme tune, one by composer Ian Fairbairn Smith, who previously won a Grammy for his work on the Barbra Streisand song Evergreen. And his Magnum PI theme sounds very 70s-ish, with it sounding more like music that you would hear in The Love Boat. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's fine, but it was decided that this theme just wasn't right for the show, and just didn't have the catchy hook that the production were looking for. So legendary TV composer Mike Post was brought in to work his magic and create a new theme for Magnum PI. Honestly, Post may have had a black belt when it comes to creating TV themes, as he created many memorable, catchy TV tunes, including the theme for the A-Team, The Greatest American Hero, Quantum Leap, Doogie Howser MD, and Law & Order, among many, many others. His Magnum PI score does have a disco flair about it, but it's also very energetic and really catchy, and thus this song became the Magnum PI anthem, and everyone loved it and instantly associated the show with this theme. In fact, going back to Screen Rant, the theme was so well loved and embraced by the public, in 1982 it entered number 25 on the Hot 100 Billboard charts. So not only were fans of the show enjoying the luxury of seeing Magnum PI on the small screen, but also listening to its catchy, funky theme tune on the radio, proving the huge effect this show had in its time. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a rise in Hawaiian shirts being purchased too. Number 2. Cancellation. Magnum PI made its small screen debut in December the 11th, 1980, just 3 days after the murder of John Lennon. And it was successful, with its first season bringing in an average of 21 million viewers. However, Magnum PI really reached its A-game with its third and fourth seasons in 1982 and 1983, with those seasons having an average of 22.5 million viewers, with the show reaching the number 3 to number 6 slot of most watched program. However, by season 6 there was a massive drop in viewings, with it overall on